Hi, I'm David Moss. At Moss Nissan, we have the largest selection of pre-owned vehicles in the Tampa Bay area, and all of our vehicles are clearly marked with wholesale to the public pricing. And every vehicle comes equipped with Moss Care, which gives you added peace of mind with features and benefits such as lifetime oil changes, tire rotation, roadside assistance, and so much more. Visit us today and let one of our knowledgeable members of the Moss Family Automotive team give you all the information you need to make an informed car buying decision. Moss Nissan, whatever it takes.
Blog Talk Radio.
My name is Mark Radulich, and you are listening to the 411 Ground and Pound radio show. We are happy to be with you on a Sunday morning after what was a lively and exciting, possibly historical night in mixed martial arts. The UFC brought us UFC 128, Jones versus Shogun Hua, and whoo doggy. A lot went on last night. A lot of really good interviews after the show. We've got some that we're going to play for you today. We've got one with Dana White and Ariel Helwani where he talks about the John Jones Shogun fight and what's next for John Jones and Rashad Evans. He talks a little bit about the strike, a little bit more about what's going on with Strikeforce, and where does Mirko Cro Cop go from here? Not very far. And we're going to bring that up shortly. We've also got an interview we're going to play for you with Brendan Schaub, because I think it's interesting after last night's performance, where does he go from here? And so there's some things we want to talk about there. So we want to hear from you also. The number to call in is 323-657-0901. Again, give us a call. You can speak to any one of us here on the panel, 323-657-0901. So I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time with like a big opening spiel today. I don't have a whole lot to talk about in my life. There's a lot to talk about with regards to last night's show, plus next weekend coming up, the 25th, we've got Titan Fighting Championship 17 with Bobby Lashley we want to talk about. We've got the premiere of Those Crazy Russians, M1 US Challenge on Showtime. We've got another Bellator card. And, of course, we've got UFC Fight Night 24, Lil Nog versus Mr. Wonderful Phil Davis. So we've got a pretty loaded show and a lot of MMA to talk about after a brief respite where we could catch our breaths. We're right back in the thick of it again. So no more wasting time. Let me first bring out the panel from the 3 R's. On 411, we are delighted to have him on the show today, Mr. Jeffrey Harris. How do you do, sir?
What is this, no music? I don't get any entrance music here?
I thought about that, and I'll tell you what. I'm going to do something I don't normally do because it seems to mean a lot to you. And since I don't know if he's ever actually going to come on the show, I'm going to give you the boss's music, all right?
Oh my God.
You're getting the boss's music. You just leapfrogged the boss, a la John Jones, Rashad Evans. Okay,
I'm more honored.
Here he is from the Communist Republic of California, Mr. Jeffrey Harris.
Metronome I hear, but happy end is drawing near. out. You never hear the shot that takes you down. Out of time, we'll say goodbye. What is yours now is mine. And I dream broken dreams. I make them come true. I make them for you.
No way to bring out this show than having the 411 Mania Jack of all trades, you know? Not only the author of the MMA History Ours, the greatest MMA column in the history of the internet, but also the best MMA interviewer in the world as well.
Yes, absolutely. I would 100% agree to that. Welcome to the show, Mr. Jeffrey Harris. We are glad to have you on the panel. Also joining us, as always, he is the man, the myth, the legend. He is the author of A View from the Cheap Seats, and there are no cheap seats. When you read his column, you are getting the bird's eye view of the best MMA coverage that 411 can bring you. This man is Scott Kachowski. Welcome aboard, Scotty.
Gentlemen, how are we doing this morning?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, Jeff?
We're breathing. Thank you for asking.
I'm you know, I thought last night was a pretty good night. I rather enjoyed that show.
Yeah, you know what? I did too. We'll talk about it in just a moment. But the Uriah Faber match, I started to get a little sleepy. I also watched it a little bit delayed because we got home from a party later than I had suspected. Yeah, I was trying to balance, being a part of this local mom and dad's group so that we can, get out and meet new people, and my duties as an MMA live coverage person and a fan. And it's quite the juggling act, let me tell you what. So,
that's what you just
tell them.
Look, I've got 6 other nights of the week I can dedicate to you guys.
All right, last man on the panel here, and because I am a big fan of running gags, he has quite possibly the sexiest voice on the 411 MMA zone. He is, again, sexy voice, Say Mercati.
And I want to give it all to you. Yeah, right on. I'm right here for you. I know it's going to be good to you. Yeah. And I'll tell you why, baby. Baby, it's time that you know.
That makes me more uncomfortable every time I hear it. Welcome to the show, Samer.
So Scott gets the Here Comes the Pain music, and I get this?
I think maybe the pain was referring to my column.
It's a compliment, man. There's nothing wrong with that music.
There's a lot wrong with that music, given the context, but fine, I'll take it. What's up, guys?
How you doing, Samer? And, of course, Samer writes quite possibly one of the best columns on MMA, not only in the 411 zone, but in the entire MMA sphere. He writes the Rear Naked column, a big fan favorite on the boards. You're one of the few people that I see where we don't get angry comments saying how much you suck on ice. So that's got to be a great thing for you.
I'm thrilled.
Of course. All right, let's stop with the carrying on here with all the fussing and all that. Let's get right down to it. John Jones last night gets in there and in 3 rounds ends up taking the light heavyweight championship from Mauricio Shogun Hua. Jeff, you're first on today. I'm going to throw it to you first. What happened there? Where did Shogun go wrong? Why did he make a wrong turn at Albuquerque? What went on there? What failed for him?
What failed is that John Jones stylistically was a nightmare matchup for him. The dude is so big and he's so long, and I mean he's an aggressive wrestler, and that style is just a bad matchup for Shogun. Guys that grapple him and just manhandle him, it just works out bad for him. And mixing that with John Jones' reach, Shogun wasn't able to close the distance, and he was going for these leg locks, on the ground, which were, they weren't working for him. And it's really, I was going for Shogun, but really this is what I thought was going to happen. John Jones was just going to be too much for Shogun. I don't know. I don't know if it was the layoff or the third knee surgery for Shogun, but I think John Jones would simply be too much for a lot of guys. Look at who he's beaten before. Ryan Bader, completely undefeated before he got to John Jones, and Bader was 5-0 in the UFC. So, dare I say, welcome to the John Jones era.
One could say that that's bold. One could say it's painfully obvious. That Dana White calls him a brand new breed of MMA fighters, and I think there's a lot to that statement. Scott, let me ask you now. We've talked in the last couple of shows about fighting styles, and we've really got dug in the weeds, as they say, with regards to looking at the style of jiu-jitsu versus wrestling versus Muay Thai. And one thing became painfully clear to me watching that fight last night is that John Jones dominated that match because he utilized his Muay Thai skills. He threw a lot of elbows. He threw a lot of knees. Earlier in the day, I was actually watching the Wanderlei Silva Rampage fight from Pride, where Wanderlei was doing skippies into Rampage's face, and that reminded me of the John Jones performance that night. Do you think his Muay Thai skills really does set him apart from the rest of the light heavyweight division, and do you think it played a role? What kind of role do you think it played in last night's fight?
I think his striking is above average. I think his reach, though, is really a defining factor. When you can stand there and you can push kicks and teeps and throw jabs, and you have such a height and reach advantage that you really almost have no fear of your opponent being able to counterpunch against you. That offers a tremendous advantage for him. And he's fast, and like they drilled it into our heads. He's only been training on this 3 years, so I'm anticipating that he's going to get better, and we're going to keep seeing fights like this. It's just, but look at his brothers, all tremendous athletes. He is just a naturally gifted guy. I think pretty much anything that he really sets his mind to, he's going to be great at it. He decided he was going to brush up on his Muay Thai, and he did, and he looked great out there. Yeah, were there still some little technical things here that he's going to have to tighten up on? Certainly. But
what
you know
were
what?
the technical things?
Just Samer had mentioned a couple of things in his article that there's a couple of little areas that John Jones will probably still end up having to tighten up on, but he is still. Last night we watched him just. Quite frankly, I thought he just walked through Shogun. And I tweeted this, after the first round. I honestly thought he probably could have gone for the kill after the first round, and it was really just, I don't know whether they had told him, hey, look, you're going to really take your time in this. We're not going to rush at all. Maybe they knew Shogun was probably going to gas as time went on. But I really thought he probably could have closed the show in the first round if he'd wanted to.
Really? You think he could have put him down in the first round? So why do you think he did not?
I think it was. I think their game plan was to not go out there and get crazy. I think they realized that Shogun's, despite maybe that he wasn't in the best shape, and that that John Jones was probably going to outmatch him. I think they still had enough respect for Shogun and respect for his chin that if John Jones went out there and really, just tore into him for 5 minutes and then couldn't finish him, there is, that experience factor then comes into play where maybe John Jones is at that point tired. And now you have a very dangerous light heavyweight champion that has 4 rounds to come back and try to steal the fight from you. And I don't think they want to put themselves into that situation. I also think it's kind of a respect thing. I hate to say it, but I actually think that John Jones was, in some ways, giving Shogun his respect by, I don't want to say he took it easy on him, but I don't think he meant to go out there and completely outclass him.
Right.
I think he wanted to do it in a manner that both guys were going to walk away looking still marketable. Yeah, obviously Jones much more marketable, but.
So you feel like he had control? It sounds like what you're saying is he had control of the match, but enough that he didn't have to go in there and go balls to the walls right at that moment. He could take his time and prevent himself from maybe making a stupid mistake where the whole thing goes belly up.
I didn't see any point in that fight where I thought to myself, oh, Shogun's really got him. Shogun's really got John Jones, rocked or staggered or in trouble or at all, in jeopardy on the judge's cards or even frantic. John Jones looked calm. When he maintained his top control, everything he did was measured, didn't get crazy. And the only time you really saw him speed up, with his elbows and his punches was when he went for the kill. That was it.
Samer, is there anybody in the light heavyweight division at this time that can hold the candle to John Jones? We just put out this week, the 411 MMA Zone is going to feature its light heavyweight rankings. I actually did mine this morning, and I was looking at the last one versus the one I put up today, and I'm looking at that list, regardless if they're in Strikeforce or if they're in the UFC. I'm not seeing a whole lot of guys that I look at and go, that would be a tough matchup for him. Where does he stand in the light heavyweight division in your eyes? Clearly he's number one, but I'm talking about, is there anybody that's a threat to him?
A threat, maybe. I guess Lyoto Machida. Just for the matchup, I wouldn't favor him, certainly not. But I think Lyoto, because he's good in the clinch, he's got good footwork, he's good from distance, he's got much better takedown defense than Shogun, and he's better at regaining his feet. I think he would be the most stylistically tough matchup for Jones, but maybe Jones doesn't finish him inside 3 rounds. Maybe he takes him to a decision, but I think Jones wins anyway. The thing is with Jones is that when you're 23 and you've only had the number of fights he's had, you're going to get better with every fight. People say that about Anderson Silva, about other people. I don't think I'm sure they get better, but not significantly better. I mean, just how much better can you get than George St. Pierre or Anderson Silva? Whereas these guys like John Jones, Cain Velasquez, these guys who are already at a very high level and are young enough and with relatively little experience, they are going to get better with every fight. I mean, Jones, one of my criticism of him was that he doesn't use his reach as well as he could. His jab is, I don't want to say non-existent, but isn't as effective as it can be. And in 5 weeks, he didn't develop a jab, but what he did was relied on his kicks from distance. And Shogun was like standing miles away from him. He couldn't get inside him. He couldn't close the distance and throw punches. He was missing by miles. I mean, yeah, he looked tired and sloppy and all of that, as he usually does when he's returning from injury, but I don't think any version of Shogun would have stood a chance last night. I mean, the thing is with Jones, what he did really smart was just he was throwing these little turning side kicks to the shin, the way Anderson Silva does when he's playing around. He was throwing body kicks, front kicks, push kicks, and what can you do against that? How can you close the distance? You can't shoot on him. You're not going to take him down, not with his athleticism. And he's got the wrestling to put any guy in that division on his back. That I have no doubt about. Actually, I was kind of pleasantly surprised by how willing he was to stand with Shogun. I thought he was going to shoot in at every chance he got, because clearly he could have taken him down at will, and he did at 2 different points. But even standing, he went to town on him. And the scary thing is there's still room for much improvement, which is, like terrifying, really, if you're going to face that guy. I mean, if I'm Rashad, I don't care about him being my teammate. I'd be really, honestly, I'd be scared right now. So to answer your question, I'd say Lyoto Machida, but I wouldn't give him much of a chance, but certainly better than any other guy in that division.
The top 3 guys, he gets Rashad Evans next, and we're actually going to move into that because there was a lot of, I don't know if you'll call it controversy, it's more drama between the awkwardness that followed his victory. Dana White has flat out said, next up, Rashad Evans, depending on, how soon he gets medical clearance and when and where they want to book this thing, which will probably do gangbusters. But, behind Rashad Evans, you've got Rampage Jackson, depending on how Lyoto Machida does against Randy Couture, I would say he's up there too. And so he's got some interesting matchups ahead of him. I want to take a caller. He's been waiting a little while here. He's from the Cleveland area code 216. What's your name?
Yeah, how's it going, man? This is Zach Wyatt.
Hey, how's it going?
All right, man. Actually, I'm just listening in on your analysis.
Okay.
But I do want to say that John Jones, man, he really did step it up and did a pretty good job on this fight. And it's a remarkable win.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay. Give us a holler in the chat if you want to come back on, okay?
All right.
Okay, I'm going to play an interview that Dana White did right after the fight last night, and look, big props to John Jones for stopping the thief in the park and all of that. He is a modern day superhero, and I have plenty of nice things to say about him, but that's not what I want to spend a lot of time on this show discussing. It's a wonderful thing, and I cut that part right out of the interview. I want to get to the meat of things, which was Dana White's analysis of the aftermath of the Jones Hua fight. But he also talks about Mirko Cro Cop here, and he talks about Strikeforce. So I want to get into all of these things in time. So let me play this interview, and then Jeff, Scott, and Samer, I want to get your thoughts and analysis.
A somewhat awkward situation after the fight with him and Rashad staring at each other in the cage. How did you convince Rashad Evans to take this fight?
I didn't have to convince Rashad Evans to take this fight. Rashad has his opinions and beliefs in how he should handle his business, and I have mine. And Rashad and I butt heads here and there. Rashad sometimes comes out and says, oh, he doesn't like me, he's this and that. I like Rashad very much, and Rashad knows that. And, I have a great relationship with him. I consider him a guy that I call a friend. I like his wife, his family, everybody. But I don't agree with the way he does things sometimes, and I guess I just had to explain it differently to him. Is John Jones his friend? John Jones is a guy, he's a guy that he's friendly with, and he likes him, and he thinks he's a good guy. Now, I don't care. When you're a fighter, you have a very small window of opportunity to A, make money, B, win world titles and do amazing things and become as famous as you can possibly be, so that when it is over, you can go on and do other things. If you waste your time and you don't do these things, and when it's over, are your friends, John Jones, Greg Jackson, your family, going to pay your bills? Are they going to take it? Your family is your wife, your kids, these things. That's your family. And you have to provide for them. You have to have the house and the this and the that. John Jones and all these other guys aren't going to pay Rashad Evans' bills when it's over.
We talked to Rashad after the fight. He wasn't throwing many accolades out towards Jones, and he was kind of reserved. But the one thing he did say was, I'm done with Greg Jackson. And I asked him if he felt betrayed. He wouldn't answer the question, but it seemed as though there's now some animosity between him and the Jackson camp, and Jones is obviously a part of it. Did he tell you anything about that, why he feels this sort of animosity?
Listen, I said this before, and I'll say it again. And I don't care if it's I like Greg Jackson. Super nice guy. And the guy helped apprehend a criminal tonight. And I like Bob Cook from AKA. And there's guys from other camps that I like, too, that run the camps. But don't ever forget that this is a business, right? The more good guys Greg Jackson has in his camp, the more money they make. And if you create this atmosphere where, hey, we're all family, we're friends, we don't fight, then nobody's going anywhere. And I think the way that Rashad feels right now is, wasn't I here first? So I'm sure Rashad feels like, that camp is picking him over Rashad.
Let me just get some quick thoughts from you before we wrap this up. Mirko Cro Cop, you think he's done in the UFC after the loss to Brendan Schaub?
Yep. I like Mirko Cro Cop. I have a lot of respect for him. And I was saying tonight, his last couple of fights have been a testament to how good this guy really was when he was in his prime. He's fighting bigger, stronger, faster, younger heavyweights, and he looks pretty damn good doing it at his age and where he is at in his career, and considering the fact that this guy came from K1, where he was a striker. But yeah, I think this is the last time we'll see him in the octagon.
Jim Miller looked very good. Do you think he is ready to fight for a title?
Love that kid, man. He's a pit bull. He comes in, and he said it tonight at the press conference, always accepts fights if we call him tomorrow, he'd fight again, and he's always in great shape. He keeps improving and getting better. The kid's in a nasty division. The 155-pound division is so nasty. So we'll see what happens.
Nate Marquardt says he's seriously considering moving down to 170. Do you like that?
Wow, that's interesting. He's huge. He's monstrous. If he could make 170, it'd be interesting to see.
Uriah Faber, did he at least prove to you that he should be fighting for the title next?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was spacing out there for a minute. Yeah, Uriah.
Got bored?
Yeah, you bored the shit. Yeah, I almost fell asleep. No, Uriah looked great tonight. I think that I don't know how other people felt that watched the fight, but Eddie didn't have a lot of steam coming to this thing. But people who know this kid know that this kid's very tough and was there tonight. Eddie came here to win, came here to take out Uriah Faber. Uriah Faber completely changed his mind during the fight. And in that third round, I thought Faber looked incredible.
Are he and Cruz coaching Tough 14?
No.
No, they're not, or no, you don't know?
No, they're not.
Who is?
I'll let you know when it's time.
Okay, final question. We saw Dan Henderson sitting in the VIP area. We saw Jason Mayhem Miller. A Strikeforce commercial aired during the pay-per-view. Is this part of the, it was almost shocking to see Henderson there, to be honest, and see Mayhem and the commercial. Anything you could tell us about April 9th? A lot of people are curious to see how that show is going to go down.
Well, Dan and I started texting a couple days ago, going back and forth. Dan and I are always busting each other's balls, and he told me he was going to come tonight. And so I went over and talked to him. I think that the key thing about this, we'll call it a transition, is I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable. We own this company now, and there's obviously, so it's going to be run separately. And there was a meeting a couple days ago with Showtime that I hear went very well. I didn't attend, and we'll see how this thing goes. It's all still a work in progress. This deal's a week old, and I don't know.
Will Paul Daly fight in the main event? He said he is starting to have cold feet. Not sure about it.
Paul Daly has a contract, so it would be a good idea if he did.
That last line sounds very menacing, very, very quiet, very menacing. Is Paul Daly going to fight? Yes, it would be a good idea if he did. Dun, dun, dun. But let's deal with the first part of that, which is coming out of that fight now. Rashad Evans is next in line to fight John Jones at some point in the future. Jeff, let me ask you, the implication there was that Rashad Evans is bitter about seemingly Greg Jackson's camp, and Greg Jackson in particular, getting behind what one might consider to be, the flavor of the month, the new guy, and feeling very much displaced. That there was a line in there from Dana White, well, I was here first. Do you legitimate?
To address that, first thing I just wanted to point this out. Of the panel, myself, Scott, and Samer, we all picked John Jones to win last night. Samer and I both picked his correct way of winning in the fight, but we both missed. I picked round 2 and Samer picked round 4. But I just wanted to point that out. Is it legit? I've been talking about this a lot. I think Rashad Evans needs to get his blood up. He needs to take this fight. He made this bet. He's the one that's saying, "Oh, if I don't fight for the belt now, I'll never fight for it again." Yeah. So I mean, Greg Jackson. This meltdown of Team Jackson is his own fault. You cannot monopolize all the top contenders and all the top divisions and in the same organization and expect them to never have to fight. This is the nature of the business. This is a sport. This is an individual sport where guys have to fight each other to become the best or to become a champion, and this is what has to happen. And I think the reason Dana White kind of upsets people sometimes is because he calls it right most of the time, and he's calling it right here. He's right on here, and I pretty much agree with him.
You say, almost purposely. I mean, isn't it? I would say it's sort of a matter of randomness where, I mean, you might attribute it to, look, if one guy's coaching a handful of people who came to him and they all went on to become champions, that's advertising for your gym and your skill set as a coach. More people are going to come, and you're going to therefore create more champions. So when I hear you say, if you're going to monopolize, that seems to be, I don't want to say victim of circumstance, but just the circumstances of his being a really good coach.
Well, I mean, yeah,
criticisms
he's
from a
a
few
really
months
good
back.
coach, but at the same time, he has to be ready. He has to prepare for these things because, I mean, look, he knows where John Jones was going, and I don't know the circumstances of how Jones and Jackson came together, but I did read something that Jones, made an agreement that he would never fight anyone ahead of him or leapfrog anyone ahead of him. But again, this is a sport. Jones, he earned his title shot. Rashad, he's arguably earned his title shot as well. I mean, his only loss was to Lyoto Machida, and then he came back and he got 2 big wins. He beat Thiago Silva and he beat the former champion in Rampage. I think Evans has to take this fight if he really wants another shot at the belt.
Scott, any clue as to where Rashad goes from here as far as training? I mean, he says he's now done with the Jackson camp, and rightly so. But where does he go? Does he go to Extreme Couture? Does he, where do you think he lands here so that he's got any kind of chance of beating John Jones? I mean, and where would you send him if you were managing his career?
Honestly, I'd probably send him to Extreme Couture. Nice wrestling-based camp for a guy with who's wrestling is his what really kind of brought him to the show. Plus, I think when you go to Extreme Couture and you court the services of Randy Couture, you are probably courting one of the the services of probably one of the better tacticians in MMA. While I would never favor Randy in a fight with John Jones, I do think Randy could probably come up with a really nice game plan for a very good fighter to at least, cause John Jones some problems. And so, yeah, Extreme Couture would probably be a good choice for him. But honestly, any of the really marquee, gyms would probably do Rashad, good. And quite honestly, I'm a proponent for guys changing up gyms every so often because I do think that they fall into that comfort. And it's funny that this is such a big deal now, And I know Jeffrey mentioned that he thought it was because, he said that, Greg Jackson kind of holds some of the blame because he'd monopolized, the majority of the good fighters. And I agree with that, But I think Greg Jackson's big problem is he probably should have just been more upfront with his guys, with hey, look, there is a chance that you guys are going to have to fight. You need to understand that now. And what kills me is a lot of people, especially on the interwebs, they're, you don't know what it's like. They train, they're like family. Well, whatever. Okay, anybody that's played any sport, there's always been people that were much better and or not as good. If you played football, there was the guy that was the starting linebacker, and then you were probably the backup. Maybe you played special teams. Okay, but you all practiced together and you all tried to help each other together, and somebody was going to be better and somebody wasn't going to be. Any thought of, John Jones wasn't going to try to, he wasn't going to take a title shot from somebody that was there first. I mean, how do you even quantify that, in a realistic sense? Look, John Jones is great. So is he going to say, you know what, I'm not going to take this title shot. I'm not going to take the biggest opportunity, that's ever been afforded to me. I'm going to step back. No,
well, that's what John Jones was saying. That's what he was saying a few months ago when Evans was still fighting for the belt. John Jones was saying, well, you know what? If John Jones wins the belt, I'm never going to go for the belt. I'm just going to be happy staying number 2, and I'm just going to fight as number 2 and keep the number 2 spot because John Jones is my friend, and I want to go fishing with him in 20 years.
And that probably sounds great when neither of them are in that situation. But, I mean,
was going to say, it does make it seem like you can't really take the fighters seriously when they say things like that because the opportunity is not in front of them. They say it because it sounds good. It's politically correct.
And you can't, Mark, because look at the situation they're in right now.
But I think the feelings being hurt and stuff like that, I think a lot of that is getting played up. You know, I'm sure is Rashad Evans' feelings hurt? Sure. You know, because you know, the camp that he was with longer is now backing a younger fighter that has now happened to be the champion. And Rashad,
but what a great story that is. What a
I
mean, we talked last week about this being the Rocky story. This is now Rocky 2.
It's a great story, but it's, you know, it's also that little added bit of drama. You know, maybe that helps some people, but overall, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I look at Rashad Evans and I look at John Jones, and I don't care whether they fight, you know, whether they're fighting for the title, whether they're fighting for, you know, whatever. I see John Jones walking through Rashad Evans too. So that's it.
Samer, 2 questions for you. What does Rashad Evans have to do at this point to? Scott had talked about, you know, working on his wrestling game. What exactly does Rashad have to do to beat John Jones? What does he have to work on? And looking at the calendar, think this is a fight they could make for July? Because right now that doesn't have a headliner.
I'll take your second question first. I think July is a little bit too soon for Jones. I mean, he's had 2 fights in like 5 months, 5 weeks. We have to keep that in mind. He fought Ryan Bader not so long ago. So it's kind of a quick turnaround. August would be a little more realistic. The thing is...
It'll be in Rio in August.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
The books for Rio in August. That's why I said the earliest they could do this would probably be September if they didn't want to do it in July.
Right. So here's the thing. I don't know whether they surely want to headline the Rio show with a Brazilian. That's the deal. Because I think the line of thought was, had Shogun won, he would have headlined Rio. That would have made a lot of sense, both time-wise and the fact that he's the Brazilian champion. So whether they decide to just have the title fight there anyway remains to be seen. I think they could do it in Rio just as long as Vanderlei Silva and Vitor Belfort fight on the co-main event, because Vitor Belfort is by far the most popular fighter in Brazil. By far.
Yeah, I'm really hoping they pull that off. I heard that announcement yesterday, and I got very excited for a UFC Rio with Wanderlei and Vitor. I'm hoping that announcement comes soon. But please continue.
Right, absolutely. And Wanderlei is actually like the second most popular fighter in Brazil. Everybody likes Wanderlei everywhere, really. So if they could put that on the co-main event, then maybe they could do Jones versus Rashad there. Otherwise, it's a complicated. I don't know if Jones would be willing to fight in July. Sure, I'm sure if you're Rashad, the sooner the better, because he's basically been sidelined for, like, he'd be sidelined for more than a year by the time the fight happens, which is, you know, a lot. He already chose to sit out and then got injured, and now he has to wait again without fighting. So for Rashad, the sooner the better. I think July, if Jones can make it, sure. Otherwise, why not make it in Rio? I don't think the show absolutely needs to be headlined by a Brazilian. I mean, they have a ton of Brazilians. Minotauro wants to fight on that card. Vanderlei against Vitor. They could put Machida there. You have a ton of Brazilian fighters who could be on the show. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the main event. So the Rio card, why not? Regarding your first question about what Rashad needs to do in order to beat Jones, aside from hitting him with a hammer, I'm honestly not sure.
If you hit him with a hammer, you know what it would sound like? Running gags. I love them. Please continue.
And then Jones would probably just stand up and hit him with a spinning back elbow and win. But no, really, the thing is, with Rashad, like, all kidding aside, the thing is with Rashad, he's not a super great wrestler. He's a good wrestler. His wrestling certainly looked better against Rampage, where he just double-legged him with ease. Usually Rashad relies more on pushing guys against the fence. I'm not sure he's going to be able to do that against Jones. I mean, think of it this way. Thiago Silva was able to just scramble back to his feet virtually every time Rashad took him down. And Jones is bigger, more athletic, better wrestler. I'm not sure Rashad, in fact, I know Rashad wouldn't stand a chance of taking him down. You have the reach. How is he going to close the distance? That's a really tough fight for Rashad, man. I think if I have to bet on, like, a way for Rashad to win, it would be in the striking, although I'm also not sure how that is possible because, you know, you have the reach. Rashad has the power. He certainly has the power to put Jones away. I mean, we saw the overhand right he hit against Chuck Liddell. That was before Chuck Liddell's chin became, you know,
Right. I don't want you to continue, but I watched that fight last night, and I turned to my buddy who I watched it with, and I said, "My God, fighting John Jones is like fighting an octopus. He's just got these long ass limbs, and the longest limbs in the UFC, and he knows how to use them." Look, anyone that studies any kind of the striking combat sport knows that it's hard to get. It's hard to get in when you've got that kind of a long reach, because even the most dainty, jabbing type fighters to just keep you at a distance. Go ahead, Samer, and then Jeff. I think you wanted to throw in there.
Yeah. So I'm really not sure. It's not about the gym thing. I think Rashad can train in Colorado with Trevor Whitman. They're still friends, and they're kind of. I know they're affiliated with Greg Jackson. I don't know how close they are because things might get spread, game plans and whatnot. Some people train in both camps. It is a little complicated. I'm sure Rashad will train in Colorado. I'm not sure he'd be willing to move all the way to Vegas just to train with Extreme Couture, and that's a little complicated, man. I think Rashad is just going to train in Colorado, maybe New York too, go to Henzo's camp, and it doesn't necessarily have to be one camp. A lot of guys do that, like George St. Pierre. He trains mostly in Montreal, but goes to New York and Albuquerque and even London. So Rashad can do the same. I don't see why not, just as long as he has the money to do it, which I'm sure he does. So
and then maybe Rashad Evans can go to Thailand and join Alistair Overeem, meet him in the Muay Thai department.
Oh yeah, just go train in Golden Glory in Holland. I mean, I'm not sure that's possible, but I'm sure it is. But I don't think it's very convenient. But
not
in other cases, not likely exactly. In other cases, I'm not sure it's about the gym. It's just a tough matchup. I mean, Jones is basically a tough matchup for everybody, but especially for Rashad, who's a wrestler with not that great of a top control, and nor is he that active from the top in that he can put Jones away. And if he's on the bottom, what is he going to do? He's not going to submit. I mean, Shogun is much better off his back than Rashad, and he had nothing for Jones. Very tough fight. Very tough fight. I'm not sure if that answers your question because you asked me what does he need to do, and basically I came up with nothing, but very tough fight for Rashad.
It sounds like you said, say his prayers, take his vitamins, and train. So, yeah.
Right, or he could just bribe somebody in Greg Jackson's camp. I'm sure he's still friends with Keith Jardine or somebody just to injure Jones on purpose.
I don't think I think Keith Jardine has the same problem that Tito Ortiz has. Is on the way to sabotaging John Jones, he'd trip and fall, and I swear I won't play the sound again. But he'd hurt himself on the way there. I swear, Keith Jardine, Tito Ortiz, and Batista all should go out bowling together. Jeff, you wanted to weigh in there, and then I want to move on to my poor dear old Mirko Cro Cop. We must talk about this because it pains me deeply. But your final word on this, Jeff.
Evans needs to join the hit squad, and second, fighting John Jones is not like fighting an octopus. It's like fighting Cthulhu.
But for those who, I'm going to do a Rush Limbaugh thing. For those of you in Rio Linda, can you please explain who that person is?
Cthulhu is a monster of myth and legend. He's basically he's sort of a malevolent, evil monster god, and he has a giant tentacled kind of octopus head, and he's like the size of a mountain.
Excellent. Write that down, kids. All right. Poor dear old. You guys know, and because I've mentioned this in passing in the past. Last name Radulich, Croatian. My heart, I love Mirko Cro Cop. One of my favorite fighters of all time, and not just because we share a common heritage, but because when he kicks people, or at least when he used to kick people, their heads came off, and it was a great thing of beauty to watch. Anytime you got to watch the Mirko Cro Cop, best ofs on YouTube, and you just see heads snapping off like old Star Wars figures. I used to do that to my Darth Vader figure. I had about 6 of them because I kept popping the head off of these things. The only one that would happen to, and that was Mirko Cro Cop. The man kicked his way into legendary status, and then got to the UFC and proceeded to square dance with Pat Barry and have probably the worst modern fight in MMA history with Frank Mir. And then he goes and he fights Brendan Schaub, and probably his best performance was still not so good. Scott, I want to start with you here. What the hell happened to Mirko, outside of just age and the fact that he's fighting younger guys, guys that are training differently than maybe what he had been used to in the heyday of Pride? Just where did it all go wrong for Mirko? Poor dear old Mirko.
Well, I think you hit it on the head. I think age, think age and timing has had a lot to do with it. In Pride, the Pride ring, I think, offered him a little bit better of a venue for, to showcase his kicks. Not that he lacks the amount of space. Not that he lacks anything inside of the octagon. It's just I think the ring offered him, better chances to use his kicks, and defend against the takedowns and stuff like that. He didn't have to really worry about being, taken down and pressed up against the cage. I also think that the Pride fighters, in Japan, I think that people wanted to stand with him a lot more than what they do now. Not that they're not, but
Schaub tackled him like 3 times. I mean, and those weren't just shoots. He tackled him like he like he was playing football. It was a thing of beauty to watch, but I don't think Mirko knew what hit him half the time. Go ahead, Scott.
I just think it was a different time too. I think it was, at that point Mirko was the top of the heap when it came to being a heavyweight striker, and it took years, but eventually a lot of people caught up to him and have surpassed him. His chin isn't what it was. I don't think his confidence is what it was. After his fight with Gabriel Gonzaga, he just never looked the same at all, anywhere. I mean, just completely different. They brought him into the UFC. They fed him Eddie Sanchez, who lost in spectacular fashion. It wasn't a great fight, but Eddie lost, and Mirko was established, and he had that win, and then everybody thought, you will beat Gabriel Gonzaga because why not? And boom. Probably the biggest and most useless fluke in MMA in recent MMA history. Gabriel Gonzaga scores this monster head kick knockout against Mirko Cro Cop, and of course they can never capitalize on it because Gabriel Gonzaga.
Not to cut you off, Scott.
Huh?
Gonzaga's a legend. What are you talking about? According to Joe Rogan, Gonzaga's a legend. Did you know?
I know. He is a legend, and I probably shouldn't besmirch his his mystique, but it was just the biggest and most useless fluke in MMA history because Gonzaga is at best a mid-level type fighter who got that great head kick knockout, and of course they couldn't do anything with it because he never really had a chance to beat Randy Couture or anybody else that was really good. And so then we just see this Mirko that has since that point been an empty shell of himself. I am quite frankly amazed that the UFC has I know why they've kept him in their services. They like him. He's gonna, there's gonna be a certain percentage of people that will buy tickets to see him and stuff like that.
Well, Scott, with the amount of, first of all, their heavyweight division not deep. It's kids pool. Number one.
Exactly.
Number two, with the amount of injuries and just bad luck that has happened in that division with diverticulitis and then Brock losing and then coming back and then losing to Velasquez. They kept him around because who the hell else are you just not going to have heavyweight fights, or are you going to get some guys?
Those are valid points, but it's not like a Mirko Cro Cop or a Mark Hunt adds any depth to your division. I mean, you can bring fighters in and say, well, because they don't have a very shallow division. But bringing fighters like that doesn't add depth to your division. It's not like anybody says, oh, you know what, if you can get by Mirko Cro Cop, he's ready for a title shot. That never happens. Nobody said that within the past 5 years. So I think he's really at that point where, and I don't know, I mean, it seems as though now Dana White has resigned himself to the fact that he's not going to fight in the UFC anymore, but I think they should have been just handling him as a showcase fighter. In my mind.
Okay, that sets up where I wanted to go next perfectly. But it looks like we both of you guys wanted to weigh in on that. So go ahead, Samir, and then Jeff.
The thing with Cro Cop, I think you hit it on the head when you talked about the shallow nature of the heavyweight division. He's not the fighter he was, not even close. And Scott is totally right. Where even if you beat Cro Cop, it's not like you're on the cusp of a title shot. But who would you rather watch? Who's a better fighter, Cro Cop or Tim Hague, Cro Cop or Chris Tucker? I mean, the heavyweight division, Cro Cop or Travis Brown, the heavyweight division is poor when it comes to your average fighter, not the top fighters. Junior Dos Santos, Cain Velasquez, Brock, Carwin, these guys are awesome. But when you look at your average lightweight, like a Kamal Shah-Ruth, he's still miles better than your Chris Tucker. You look at Jim Miller, who's like, right now, if you look at the entire light heavyweight division, even outside of the UFC, he's not a top 5 fighter. If you get the equivalent of Jim Miller in the heavyweight division, he'd be like your second guy. Jim Miller is an awesome fighter, and he's just broken into the top 10. That's how deep that division is, where conversely, you compare that to heavyweight, not so much. And as to why Cro Cop isn't the fighter he is, yes, Scott hit it on the head. Age, injuries, the fact that even though he was great, he wasn't as good as people perceived him to be. I mean, he still got knocked out by Kevin Randleman. You still hear people talk about GSP's loss to Matt Serra as evidence, allegedly, as to why he has deficient striking. Whereas we forget that Cro Cop, even in his prime, got knocked out by Kevin Randleman. Not that he wasn't any good, but, once fighters figured him out, just circle away from his left high kick and you'd be fine. The octagon, yeah, sure, it's much bigger than the ring. He can't close in the distance the same way he can't, corner you because, you can just simply circle away. But Cro Cop just isn't as good as people thought he was. And then when you add the fact that he's older, less interested, doesn't train as diligently, and the fact that his chin isn't what it used to be, coupled with better competition, that's what you get.
Jeff, you wanted to say something there real quick?
Yes, I did. First of all, Mark, I wanted to, give my condolences for the loss of your family member's career.
Thank you. We'll be in mourning for the next few days.
I mean, he was abducted by aliens in 2006, and he was replaced by a Skrull clone, basically. A Skrull is a Marvel Comics alien that they can shapeshift and assume the form of anyone on the planet. So basically, we've been dealing with the Skrull Cro Cop for the last several years. But, I mean, look, he's not changed things up in the last 5 years. He's still training with the same people. He's not going out and seeking new people. After the Dos Santos loss, he said, my heart's not in it. I'm thinking about, fishing in Croatia. He doesn't want to fight anymore. He's gun shy. He doesn't throw the kicks. He would throw kicks against Schaub, but, I mean, those were, half-hearted attempts, and Schaub would easily block them. Guys get into his kickboxing range, and he doesn't throw at all. I mean, I think he's been done in the sport ever since he won the Pride Grand Prix, and he just mentally checked out. He didn't have anything after that.
And I'm going to just right across the panel here, and then I want to play the Schaub interview. Who won that fight, and who lost that fight in terms of, did Brendan Schaub really win it, or did Mirko Cro Cop just lose it, and Brendan Schaub was the beneficiary? If you guys catch my meaning. In other words, is it that Brendan Schaub was just that good, or Mirko Cro Cop just isn't anymore? Right across the board, guys. Samer, Scott, and Jeff.
Well, obviously a combination of both, but I think Schaub was just a better fighter. Actually, I was kind of surprised that Schaub was so interested in clinching. I thought he would simply outstrike Cro Cop, which, Jeremy Lambert, former 401 writer, he said this on Twitter. He said, just right after the knockout, he said, if he'd done that 10 minutes earlier, the fight would have been over by now. And that's it. Yeah, Schaub, for whatever reason, people still think Cro Cop is this, killer that he was in Pride, and he's not anymore. I mean, Frank Mir knocked him out. So, no disrespect to Frank Mir, but so I think Schaub is just much better. He's faster, he's more athletic, and Cro Cop is obviously not the fighter he was.
Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Schaub looked great. I think he clearly, was, if it had gone to the judges, he certainly would have won, I think, on the judges' cards, and, the stoppage was good.
Yeah, I had him 2 rounds.
I think it was just more of a decline of Mirko. Yeah, Schaub's coming up, Mirko's going down. I don't think it was great. I mean, the second round when Schaub lost the point, it really wouldn't have surprised me if the judges might have given Mirko that round, because just Schaub wasn't looking great, and Mirko had landed some decent strikes, but
that was a lost point.
Yeah, I mean, it was just. Wasn't that great, but Schaub did enough to win.
And Jeff, did Brendan Schaub really win it, or did just Mirko just not do enough?
Look, Schaub won the fight last night. I mean, it's not the greatest win because he knocked out an over the hill and sort of weak at the end of his run Cro Cop. So he won the fight. I mean, he beat Cro Cop, and Cro Cop showed up and. He was gun shy yet again in the octagon, but Schaub won.
Okay.
I mean, let's not disrespect Schaub by saying, Crow Cop already lost before he got in the cage. I mean, it was still a fight, and Schaub won it. He finished it, you know.
No, and that's fair. But but I got to ask the question because some people will look at that and go, Schaub didn't do enough to really win the fight so much as Mirko, and that's why I put it out there.
He knocked him out.
I mean, speak to that. Go ahead, Kramer.
I just said he knocked him out. I mean, one more case. Right. I know it wasn't a super impressive performance, but at the end of the day, he put him away. And come Schaub's next fight, people, the UFC will hype it as the man who knocked out Mirko Cro Cop, not the man who, kind of struggled for 2 rounds before eventually putting him away. They're just so.
I'll tell you what, if there's any justice in this world, he'll start coming out to Randy Orton's old theme music, and they'll start referring to him as Brendan Schaub, the Legend Killer. No, I don't watch a lot of pro wrestling. Now listen.
Oh God, don't even. You said that. You said that. You know what? I think even if I'll say this though, had it gone to the judges, I still think Schaub would have won.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. It would have been 29-28, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to address where does Schaub go from here, and then talk about the Uriah Faber Eddie Wineland match. But Schaub had an interview shortly after the fight. The real quick one. He called out yet another legend, and this is actually a departure from what I think they should do with Schaub next, based on the June card with my other favorite, Brock Lesnar, and the man who will give him an awful beating, Dos Santos. But let's play this, and then let's talk about what's next for Schaub.
Dave Fair backstage at UFC 128 for MMA 30 with a victorious Brendan Schaub. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's the birthday, right?
It is. Yesterday was, but we'll say today was the birthday.
Just count this as the birthday.
Yeah.
So your face a little bit beat up, and after the Gonzaga fight even a little bit beat up. You're not afraid to take some shots.
No, it's a good thing. It means I've been in a fight. It's a lot better than going in there and punch the guy once, and that's unsatisfying. So for me, it's a big deal.
Did you find that Mirko Cro Cop was tougher than you expected him to be, or exactly how you expected him to be?
I expected him to be really tough. Man, this is what I thought. I knew I was in for it. I knew I wouldn't come out here unscathed, so it was good.
Now, something that I found interesting is that at the weigh-in yesterday and then today even, what was the deal with the booze?
I don't know, man. Whenever Cro Cop fights someone besides me, I boo him. So I'm a huge Cro Cop fan, and I expected it, man. And
you've always seemed like a really popular guy to me.
Oh, man, I'm a friendly guy, I thought, but I was getting booed like Brock Lesnar, man. So I expected it. It's a legend.
I mean, Cro Cop, there's a big Croatian population here in New York, from what I understand, so maybe that has something to do with it.
No, now there is.
So you got to be feeling good, obviously, with the victory. One moment, as he was knocked out, there was a one shot that was landed after the fact, but there was very little you could do about that.
Yeah, I wish they would have jumped in there and stopped it, because he was out, and that sucks, man, when they take on necessary shots.
So what's next for you in the heavyweight division?
You tell me. What do you
You'd called out Frank Mir before,
I did.
And now him and Roy Nelson.
Roy, that's a tough fight, believe me, I know.
The winner of that fight, perhaps?
Well, whatever they want. If they need someone crazy enough to fight Big Nog in Brazil, I'll be their Huckleberry, whatever they want.
Really?
Whatever they want.
Is that a fight that you actively want? Because you sort of have a habit of calling out fights that you want.
Yeah, I mean, I want the big fights, the big names, and we could continue this legend stuff if you want.
I wonder if you get booed down there.
Oh, yeah, right?
Fighting Big Nog.
No. Yeah, I'd be fine sleeping at night in the hotel. No one's going to mess with you. The food, you'll be fine, man.
Brendan Schaub, congratulations, man. Huge win tonight.
Cool. Thanks, brother.
All right, so the question of the day is, he just called out Big Nog. Is that a good fight? Is that the fight you want to see him do next? Big Nog in, Brazil, perhaps. But I want to give you this other choice, and this is where my head immediately went. And I had to do a little bit of research, because apparently Brendan Schaub is now training with Shane Carwin. So we're back to, do guys in the same camps fight each other? And I think the answer is inevitably yes. Shane Carwin doesn't have a fight for the June card, UFC 130. So they need somebody for Shane Carwin to fight, and I was looking through the top 10 heavyweights, and everyone's in a fight. Everyone's got something booked between now and June. Roy Nelson and Frank Mir fighting each other. Brendan Schaub just fought Mirko Cro Cop. Brock Lesnar and Dos Santos together. Cain Velasquez is out probably until either August or December. And then, who the hell do you have after that? I think even if you wanted to go with Skyscraper, I think even he's booked up in a fight. So who do you put against a returning Shane Carwin that's got any kind of name value? And my first thought is, well, why not Brendan Schaub? Am I completely off my rocker here? What do you guys think? Big Nog or Shane Carwin next for Schaub, or do you have a third option? Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I mean, I definitely like the Big Nog thing, and let's officially make Brendan Schaub the legend killer of the UFC and everything. I don't think the Carwin fight will happen. I mean, Schaub came up in on Shane Carwin's team. When I interviewed Schaub late last year, I mean, I addressed this to him, and the team doesn't have plans on fighting each other, but the guys in the camp, they might bring in people they fight after they fight. I don't think we're going to see a Schaub Carwin fight, even though we have this whole guys should fight each other thing going on today.
Scott?
Isn't Shane Carwin taking Josh Barnett's place in the heavyweight Grand Prix?
That's just
a
rumor.
Joke. I'm kidding. That was a joke. That's already,
no, that's Mirko Krokop.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It was going to be one of those. No, you know what? I'd be fine with him fighting Nogueira. I mean, I think that's a good fight. I think in Rio, it's of course if he loses, or if he defeats Nogueira in Rio, they're probably going to have to helicopter him out of there. But it's well, I mean seriously, that would be like beating GSP in Toronto. That's when he mentions, I'll be fine sleeping in the hotel and eating the food. Yeah, he better pack a week's worth of lunches. Not saying
they're gonna have to airdrop him into Brazil. Literally, Brendan Schaub, and he parachute into wherever they're fighting in Rio.
Oh yeah, or just zip lines in. A
la Shawn Michaels.
Well, you went there, but that's the. I think Nogueira would be a good fight because really, like you said, who else? The only thing that they could do is maybe, if they wanted to give him somebody like Czech Congo, something like that.
No, he's fighting Fat Larry.
I think he's probably already gone beyond that. So. And
they've already picked. I keep calling him Fat Larry because I think that's a funny joke, which was started on the MMA Hour with Harwani. But no, they've already got Czech Congo and Pat Barry hooked up together. So even that, because I keep saying, I keep like, why don't they use Czech to, for Brock, or why don't they use Czech for a couple of these other guys? I would have thought Czech versus Shane Carwin actually made some degree of sense. Nope. They hooked him up with Pat Barry, and so who do they have left? Like Joey Beltran?
They wanted to really employ somebody. They wanted to employ a guy that they have.
Okay, Scott, and then back to Jeff.
If they wanted to employ a fighter that they haven't employed in a while, why don't they just bring Heath Herring back and have him fight him? There you go.
Because Heath Herring's playing poker and starting a water company. That's why. Don't you listen to his show?
Yeah, I do. Not. No, that's Heath Herring's got a show. How about that? No,
yes, on Blog Talk Radio. Apparently anyone can do this. Hi, everyone.
Well, he's talked about wanting to come back though and fight. He said that So hey, bring him back. Here you go. If you can beat Brendan Schaub, we'll extend your contract. If you lose, all right, we'll release you. You're free and clear. Goodbye.
And then you can take Josh Barnett's place in the heavyweight Grand Prix. I'm going to keep making that joke because I think it's funny. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, just in terms of giving Schaub an option for someone to fight, or even just feeding a guy to him, kind of like you said, what's his name, the Gentle Giant to Matt Mitrione. You have the winner of Sean McCorkle and Christian Moorcraft, whoever would that be, coming off a win. And then you still have Ben Rothwell, who hasn't fought in a while. He won his last fight in the UFC, as awful as it was. That's just in terms of giving Schaub someone to fight to get another fight and feeding someone to him. If you are talking about building up Schaub, if he doesn't get like the Nogueira fight.
Okay, and rounding out this discussion, because I also have, and then what do you do with Shane Carwin? Samer, you're handed the book. Who do you put with Schaub? Who do you put against Carwin in June? Because this is one of the situations where once it gets. It's one of the few times we say this about Strikeforce, but occasionally the UFC does it, and it just gives me agita for all my Italian friends out there. Where June is in a few months, they still don't have an opponent for Carwin, and it almost reminds me of the Roy Nelson bit where he was like, well, Brock Lesnar's going to drop out of that fight, and they'll just put Dos Santos and Carwin together, which is funny and all, but I don't think that's reality. So again, who do you? Oh, we lost Samer. He'll be back momentarily.
Shane Carwin, I mean, that's a tough call. I mean, I've heard rumors it could be Matt Mitrione.
Ooh, that'd be a good fight.
That's not a bad fight. I think he's. Did I hear that he's still on medical suspension, or is he free to go?
I haven't heard anything, but that's another thing. I mean, who is Matt Mitrione going to fight? Because he's he's not really a contender, but he's sort of a rising prospect. So I haven't heard anything about his medical suspension and when he might fight again. But I mean June, probably would give him enough time.
I suspect so, especially if I keep wanting to say, Shaw can get in there after a 60-day suspension. Certainly, Matt Mitrione can. All right, Samer's back. Go ahead, Samer. I don't know if you can how much you got before your phone went dead.
No, sorry about that, guys. Anyway, I think this is a testament to the shallow nature of the heavyweight division, where you can't find a top contender or fighter just because everybody else is kind of, tied up in a fight. I like the Minotauro fight. If you guys are still talking about that, actually, it's fine. So I like the Minotauro fight because anytime you have a prospect facing up a much more established guy, quote-unquote legend, which Minotauro certainly is, you want it at least to be somewhat competitive. And if the fight goes to the ground, whether Shaw takes him down or Minotauro pulls guard or whatever, Minotauro will run game on Shaw on the ground. So it is competitive. Unlike, I wouldn't say the Crow Cup fight wasn't competitive, but I think, you'd bet money on Shaw winning. Whereas the Minotauro fight, with Nogueira coming off an injury and whatnot, you'd favor Shaw. I would, especially on the feet. But it's still a dangerous fight where if he wins, it's not like, he just beat Gonzaga or Crow Cup. Minotauro is kind of higher up on that pedestal. So, I like that fight. Otherwise, there's not a whole hell of a lot of guys out there. I mean, the UFC signed Dave Herman. He was impressive.
But do you beat Dave Herman immediately to Shane Carwin like that? I mean, that's right into the frying pan, don't you think?
Actually, when I was talking about Nogueira, I was referring to Schaub, of course. But regarding Carwin, you're right. It's kind of a tough, very tough debut for Dave Herman against Carwin. But maybe he has to take one for the team because there aren't too many guys out there. I mean, does Matt Mitrione have a fight, and do you want to sacrifice him against Carwin? It's tough, man. I don't know.
I think they should sign Semi Schilt. Go grab him and throw him in there with Carwin. That'd be a fun fight to watch.
Could he make 265, do you think?
I don't see why not. All right. I know you guys have been chomping at the bit to talk about the Uriah Faber-Eddie Wineland match. We've been kind of discussing it in the background there on the chat. I have to say, as much as I like Uriah Faber, this is actually pretty amusing. I'm a social worker by profession. My wife is a special ed teacher by profession, and we got sucked into the Josh Koscheck hard luck story when they ran the countdown with him and GSP, who up to that point, Josh Koscheck we thought was a douchebag and deserved to lose, and then he has a terrible life, and we were like, and then we're rooting for Josh Koscheck because we always we root for the underdogs, being us working with the social work folks and all. So here we are again, both fans of Uriah Faber, both very excited for this fight, and then we see the countdown where Eddie Wineland, he has a hard luck story too, and both of us looked at each other and we were like, wouldn't it be great if Eddie Wineland won this one? Well, not only does he not win, but Uriah Faber, in my opinion, just didn't look, I don't know, maybe until the third round, just didn't look tremendously impressive to me in this fight. Samer, what did you think of this fight? As far as did he impress you? Do you really feel like he made the most out of his UFC debut?
I think it had more to do with Wineland being better than we thought, or actually showing much improvement than Faber just not looking that good. I'm sure Faber had much more impressive performances in the past. It wasn't vintage Faber by any means, but it wasn't that underwhelming. And I mean, he still won decisively, even though when the decision was about to be announced, I had my I was on the edge of my seat because we're just used to that in MMA. But realistically, he won that fight decisively. I think I know where you're getting at, whereas we expected Faber to, just tap him out with a guillotine or rear naked choke or something like that, the way we're used to, or, engage in a scramble.
He gave Mizugaki the business.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that was sick, that choke. And we expected something similar, or at least hoped for something similar, especially when you're making your UFC debut and you're popular and you're on the cusp of a title shot. You want it to be more impressive, but it doesn't always work that way. I don't think it was Faber's fault. I think Wineland just had really, really good hips. He won that first round, in my opinion, and then he really had good takedown defense early on, and even on the ground when Faber was inside his guard, and the commentators were just marveling at Faber's elbows. They were mostly missing. I mean, Wineland's face would have been mashed up pretty badly if Faber was actually landing all of those elbows. He landed a couple, but nothing was clean because his hips, he was continuously moving and evading his strikes. I thought defensively, at least, Wineland looked good. I thought Faber in the second and third round, and Scott mentioned this on the chat, and I totally agree, his striking looked good. Not crazy about the way he was putting his hands down. I think that would get him in trouble with Cruz, and we'll talk about that later. But, he landed some good shots. He won the fight. Nothing spectacular, but I don't think it was exactly underwhelming either.
Okay. Jeff, are you disappointed? Dana White had mentioned that Dominic Cruz and Uriah Faber, while they are next to fight each other, and I suppose we'll see that probably in the fall, I suspect, unless they're going to throw them on the July card, which would also, I think, make a pretty decent, at least main event or co-main event, now that Uriah Faber has made his debut. They're not going to do the Ultimate Fighter with those two, at least not this year. Are you disappointed in that?
I'm a little disappointed in that. I think we have these bantamweight featherweights now in the UFC. I think we need to promote them and push them a little farther. Now, because that was the big story going into this year was the merging of UFC and WEC, and we're going to get these two new exciting weight classes. And I think it's important to kind of, promote the divisions and kind of, I think Ultimate Fighter is a perfect place to do it if you need, because that's the perfect avenue to promote, the first ever 135 UFC title fight, People have no idea who Dominic Cruz is, and Uriah Faber is just a big enough name to sort of, carry the hype workload, so to speak, and sort of, get the interest in viewership and, get people looking at Uriah Faber and Dominic Cruz. That I am disappointed about. The fight with Uriah Faber, Faber, he fought a winning fight. He fought a smart fight. Eddie Wineland, he's a Texan. He's from Houston. It's not surprising that he was tough in the first round. Faber fought a fight to win, but I think Cruz would give him a lot of problems in a ring.
Scott, do you think Uriah Faber takes the bantamweight title if and when they meet sometime in the next few months?
No, I don't. I think Faber has kind of hit his prime sort of years. I still think he's very good, but I don't think he's going to get to the title ever again.
Scott?
Not if he fights like he did yesterday. If he goes in there and he tries to fight Dominic Cruz like he did yesterday, then no.
Are you saying you were not impressed with his performance?
Oh, no, the first round I think it was more a testament to Eddie Wineland's toughness and the fact that he really he knew where he wanted to keep that fight, and he did for the first round, and you could clearly see the frustration on Faber's face. In the second round when he scored that takedown, though, at that point, that really kind of sucked the energy out of Eddie Wineland. I think he saw, now I'm taken down. I'm probably not going to get out from underneath this guy, so I'm going to spend the rest of the round like that. And that had to have been a confidence booster for Faber. So I think Faber made the right adjustments as the fight went on, and really kind of looked good in the third round, threw some great strikes and stuff like that. But Cruz, I think, is just going to be a different and a tougher nut to crack. Could Faber do it? Absolutely. The guy's, we've kind of dismissed his chances a little bit against Cruz, but I think he's more than capable of beating Cruz. It's just whether or not will he. Dominic Cruz is really, really good. And another thing, though, and I do think that it's funny that Dana White has said that he's not going to have those two coach season 14. Is that where we're at? Season 14 of The Ultimate Fighter already?
You bet your sweet Bippy.
So that must mean that the new coaches will probably be Cain Velasquez and Alistair Overeem.
He's going to put that out
you
there.
know what? If you wanted to announce a bombshell, could it possibly get any bigger than that?
Maybe they'll do Fedor versus Randy Couture.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you right now. Dana White has said on an interview on Inside MMA, he said nobody else knows where we're going with but us. But I'll tell you right now, if they wanted to make it huge, if they wanted to put an enormous twist on there, they have one of the coaches be a Strikeforce guy, and a high level one at that.
No, that would be fantastic. We are rounding out to the end of the show. We want to talk about what's coming up this week on 411. But before we do that, there was Bellator, which unfortunately I have not had a chance to watch. Did you guys get a chance to watch Bellator on Saturday?
I did watch Bellator.
Can you give me a 50 words or less review of Bellator?
Let's see. Patricio Freire defeated his opponent, Georgi Karakanyan. Both of them were alums of last year's featherweight tournament. Pitbull, he knocked out Karakanyan in the third round. Wilson Hayes, he defeated his opponent and advanced to the semifinals. And I forget. I think Larkin won his opening round fight. And those were the main fights. I guess the main things are that Hayes and Pitbull advanced. So both of the Pitbull brothers advanced in their fights in the tournaments. The greatest fighter of all time, the baddest man on the planet, Joe Warren, showed up, and he offered his thoughts on the tournament. And Joe Warren will most likely be fighting the winner in August, and he will be fighting Marcus Galvao signed his death sentence by agreeing to fight Joe Warren on Bellator 41, and Joe Warren will be fighting next month on April 16th. He will be murdering Marcus Galvao, and he'll be beating the winner of the tournament in August.
Is it true, Jeffrey Harris, you have it on good authority that Joe Warren will be fighting Brock Lesnar sometime in the near future and putting an end to Brock Lesnar's reign of terror? Do you have that on good authority?
You know what? In a fight between a pit bull and a Saint Bernard, I'm going to go with the pit bull, man. So, you know what? I wouldn't bet. I would never bet against Joe Warren.
All right. To anyone with technical expertise, we now need gifs of Joe Warren beating up Brock Lesnar. Send it to any one of us. But seriously, folks, next week is Bellator's 38th show, and it's the inaugural light heavyweight tournament featuring Daniel Gracie versus Tim Carpenter, Chris Davis versus Christian Mumpumba, Rafael Davis versus DJ Linderman, and Nick Fekete versus Richard Hale. And Larry Zonka will be covering that for you. Well, I will be doing duty for UFC Fight Night 24, which will be airing on Spike. Let's talk about that really quick. That's being headlined by Little Nog and Mr. Wonderful Phil Davis. Samer, how do you see that fight breaking down? Who do you like?
Joe Warren wins.
Oh, I suspect you jumped the rail with a chair in hand.
I agree.
Of course you do. I was shocked that Jeffrey went for an hour plus, actually, without mentioning the baddest man on the planet. But I'm glad he did. And
that was all set up. We needed to get there. Go ahead.
All right. He waited for the right moment to end the fight, like John Jones did. Well, I think Phil Davis beats Little Nog. I was never that impressed with. I think he's a quality fighter, obviously, but I was never that impressed with Nogueira. I think people just naturally assume that he's his brother just because they're twins and have similar fighting styles. He's just naturally as good as his brother, and he isn't. Maybe he's got more left in terms of the state of his body physically. Maybe he's in better shape. His chin isn't as short. He's not as battle worn, but I think he's just not as good. His takedown defense isn't good. Off of his back, yeah, he offers a lot, but he's not his brother either. He's not going to sweep you and submit you within seconds. He's not going to, lace up on triangle. He could, and that's one of the things I was mentioning, where if you have a prospect facing, a more established guy, you want him to be challenged, and I'm sure Little Nog will. He has good boxing, he's got power, and he's got a good ground game. So just Phil Davis can just get on top and lock up weird kimuras. I think he'll be challenged, but I think he'll take the decision.
Okay. You wanted to, real quick, just really, really quickly, go back to Faber and Cruz. If there's one more thing you wanted to add?
Oh, yeah. Well, I just want to say that I don't see Faber winning many rounds against Cruz, but I can see him actually winning the fight, if that makes any sense, because Faber's submissions are like knockout power, where he can just lace him up at any time. The second he gets a hold of your neck, he can guillotine you. If he jumps on your back, you're finished.
Right.
So if he can initiate a scramble and get on Cruz, he can tap him out. But I don't think he'll get consistent offense in where he can actually win rounds and win the fight. It will be competitive, and he certainly has a chance due to his submission ability. But I think Cruz is going to impress a lot of people in that fight.
Okay, Scott. Dan Hardy, the outlaw Dan Hardy, who has quite possibly the coolest walkout shirt I've ever seen in MMA, is fighting Anthony Johnson. Who do you like?
Whew, that's a tough one. I didn't see that one coming. You know what? I've always kind of thought Dan Hardy was a little bit overrated. I think the UFC pushed him a little bit too far. But in this case, I think it's also going to depend upon which Anthony Johnson comes out. If it's the Anthony Johnson that has to cut 20 pounds of weight on 20 pounds on weigh-in day, and is going to be very depleted, then Hardy could make quick work of him. I think if Johnson comes into shape, though, I think he'll probably be able to take Hardy down. He's just a huge guy, and I think it could be a good win. At the end of the day, I think I'm going to probably pull for Anthony Johnson. I think he can probably tire out Hardy, and wouldn't be surprised if he can score one or two first or second round TKO victory.
On the undercard, there are two matches I'm actually looking very much forward to. One of them is just because I'm sad that Nam Fan isn't getting his rematch just yet with Leonard Garcia. I think he is due. Leonard Garcia is due some comeuppance for that terrible decision. So I'm really pulling for the Korean Zombie to take him out there. But the other one, and I'm more looking forward to this just because of their names, because you've got Big Sexy Sean McCorkle versus taking on Christian World of Warcraft, and I just think those names are great. I'm looking, and anytime you have a heavyweight fight with guys who call themselves that's just fantastic. But the one that's really throwing me on this is Nick Lentz. Of all the guys they pulled out of last season's Ultimate Fighter, why did they give him a job? Any clue on that?
You're confusing him with Nick Ring. Nick Lentz wasn't on the Ultimate. I don't think he was on the Ultimate Fighter.
I thought Nick Lentz was the guy that was smoking. Or have I really pulled the wrong guy?
It was Jeff Lentz.
That's Nick Ring.
Lentz.
No, Nick Ring.
The guy who was smoking was
Nick Ring is the Canadian
Lentz.
guy with the weird accent.
Oh, okay. Whoops. I take that back. Sorry, folks.
Lentz is the human rug, isn't he?
Right. Exactly. That's who he is.
Okay.
Lentz
that was Ray Maynard's training partner.
But, one other fight forgetting, Mark, is Amir Sadala will be fighting DeMarcus Johnson.
I wasn't forgetting. I was going to throw that one to you, sir. So please, speak on it.
Well, some exclusive news. I will be giving 411mania.com an exclusive interview with Amir Sadala right before his fight with DeMarcus Johnson, only delivering the best in MMA interviews for you guys.
Outstanding. Breaking news here on the 411 Ground and Pound radio show. So in case you missed it, the man himself, Joe Warren's most favorite fan, Jeffrey Harris of the 3 R's, will be interviewing Amir Sadala right before the UFC Fight Night 24. Outstanding. And what day can the readers expect to see that interview go up?
Hopefully it'll go, I would say midweek. Thereabouts. I'm going to be trying, it'll be in as soon as possible. So I would say look out for it Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay. This week also features an All the King's Men, which talks about what happened, what we all thought of Strikeforce being bought out by Zuffa and how that will affect the world of MMA. I wrote an especially long response to that, to that question, because I had some serious thoughts on it, and I expect to be called every name in the book when some of you read it. But it's how I felt, and I don't want to give anything away.
Beyond the names that we already call you?
Boo, sir. I told you we're friends. No, I have some very strong opinions on the business side of how the merger affects the sport of MMA, and so I'm hoping to get some responses to that. We'll talk about it next week on the show if people want to argue about it. And of course, Scott will be putting his 2 cents in, I assume, as will Samer and Jeff. Right? You're all participating this week in All the King's Men.
I participated in All the King's Men, and I am addressing all the brain-dead idiots that are calling this an MMA monopoly. There is no monopoly in MMA.
Outstanding, sir. Samer, what do you have on tap for the Rear Naked column this week?
Basically just talking about how awesome John Jones is.
All right. So it's just going to be an homage to the Jones man?
Yeah, and I'm probably discussing the fight, Jones's future, how long he can reign over the division, that kind of knee-jerk reaction we've come accustomed to from MMA fans. But yeah, basically that's it.
You should also do a feature on...
Enough about the Martian Manhunter. When are we going to get a Rear Naked column highlighting the baddest man on the planet, Joe Warren?
Oh, God. when he stops having... Yeah, no, I'll answer that. When he stops having a monopoly over your heart, maybe I can sign him up for a column.
Yeah, I guess that wouldn't
put Samer on the spot.
Another columnist talking about him.
I think he's lobbying to have a Joe Warren week on 411. We'll do a Joe Warren roundtable. We'll do we'll do an All the King's Men. Isn't Joe Warren just the bee's knees? We'll do what else can we do? We already do 3 hours dedicated to Joe Warren
every week.
Whatever royalties you guys are getting from Joe Warren, I'm gonna have to make a complaint because I ain't getting anything from him yet. So.
Listen, man. I read Jeff's stuff and I find it amusing. What I find more amusing is the amount of people aggravated to the hilt with Jeff for constantly including pictures of Joe Warren. Because again, I love a running gag and I think it's great that he does it. But boy, do you upset? I haven't seen people this upset since I made fun of Tito Ortiz last week. I've got to be honest with you. But what do you got going on this week, Scott? In a view from the cheap seats.
Well, we'll break down 128 and. I'm going to try to look at where the winners or the losers are going to go from here, is Jim Miller going to finally, get treated seriously? Is he going to, finally going to be put, quote, in the mix, in the light heavyweight division and all that? And, it's funny, just to touch on that Strikeforce thing, on the Strikeforce merger, there was an interview with Scott Coker, and this right here should tell you the level of it, the big difference that Strikeforce is, how we're going to see things change is Scott Coker was invited to a PR meeting with the UFC, and he asked them, how many PR people do you have, in the UFC? And they said, well, 15. Scott Coker had one.
Right.
He had one person doing PR, and that right there, from his viewpoint, that's going to be the massive difference, the massive, the difference in resources that they're going to be able to put behind Strikeforce. So
was that the only one that got a little tingly when I saw it? Got a little tingly. It felt a little special when I saw the advertisement for the next Strikeforce card in the middle of what's on the calendar for the UFC.
Oh yeah, good. That's good stuff. But that's people that are complaining about the monopoly, they're acting like they're getting a cut of the fighters' salaries. And if I wouldn't know any better, I would almost think that the majority of our website is being read by managers and stuff like that, the way they complain about how the fighters' salaries are going to be affected. But whatever.
Well, if that's the case, then a lot of the managers are illiterate because the half of them commenters just can't spell. That's right, I said half of them. Now, listen, I've got a column up this week in the politics section that actually talks about corporations and mergers and whatnot. It's called Corporations Are People Too, which you can read in the politics section. And it really is the good, the bad, and the ugly about what corporations are, why they exist, why they need to exist, but also what are some of the problems with them, because we're never going to be in a world without them. So this is sort of pointless bickering about why they need to go away. It really is you're just speaking into the wind. So I addressed all that, and that's another column for me because I haven't hit the politics zone in a while. But I will also be doing live coverage of the Titan Fighting Championship 17, featuring the return of one Bobby Lashley, and he's taking on somebody who I don't know, somebody possibly Dr. Octopus. We don't know. And also coming back on that card is Strong Island's own Phil Baroni. So Titan Fighting Championship on HDNet's going to be a fun show. I'll be covering that live. Larry will be doing double duty. He'll be covering M1 U.S. Challenge's debut on Showtime. So you'll get Bobby Lashley on one channel and Crazy Russians on the other. It'll be fantastic. And then on Saturday night, Bellator 38, live coverage by Larry Zonka, and I'll be covering UFC Fight Night 24. Probably sans the Tito jokes this time. Maybe not. One never knows.
Jim Miller going up to 205. I hear he's fighting at light heavyweight now. That was a joke because I think someone was saying like Jim Miller going up to fighting it to the light heavyweight title. But Jim Miller put on an amazing performance. He needed to. I'm going to talk about this in the 3 hours. He needed to be more outspoken about getting a title shot and making his case because he would have had nothing to lose by doing it.
Yeah, unfortunately, that line forms to the left of people vying for the light title, and they still got to get on the third match out of the two, out of Maynard and Featherfoot over there, Frankie Edgar.
Just say I want my rematch with the winner of Maynard Edgar 3.
There you go. All right. So thank you, Jeff, for being on the show. You are welcome back at any time, sir, not just because you write on the staff and I have to, but I actually enjoyed hearing from you today. So you can get up early on a Sunday morning in the communist state of California. We would love to have you on again, sir.
Thank you, guys. Mark, thank you so much. It's been a great honor and pleasure. Samer and Scott, it's been a great honor and pleasure speaking and talking with you guys.
Okay. Scott, once again, thank you for being on the show. We hope to keep coming on again next week. As for you, Samer, you need to come on because I've got plenty more sexy music for you. Oh, it only gets worse from here, my friend.
I can't wait.
All right.
I'll work on that voice during the week.
What was that?
I said I'll work on my voice during the week.
Excellent. You need to be doing vocal training.
No work with I don't. Who told you I don't?
So do you hang up the phone? What you really sound like? Hey y'all! That's really what you sound like. But you come on and this is your radio voice.
I'll never admit to that.
Outstanding. Scott, any last words?
No. Good show.
All right, great show, guys. Loved having you on. We will do this again next week, and we will tackle the 90 million MMA fights happening this weekend. This has been the 411 Ground and Pound Radio Show, and we are out of here.
Hi, I'm David Moss. At Moss Nissan, we have the largest selection of pre-owned vehicles in the Tampa Bay area, and all of our vehicles are clearly marked with wholesale to the public pricing. And every vehicle comes equipped with Moss Care, which gives you added peace of mind with features and benefits such as lifetime oil changes, tire rotation, roadside assistance, and so much more. Visit us today and let one of our knowledgeable members of the Moss Family Automotive team give you all the information you need to make an informed car buying decision. Moss Nissan, whatever it takes.
Your perfect closet starts with the right finishing touches. And right now, during the Lighting and Accessories event at California Closets, every $1,500 of designed lighting and accessories earns you $500 towards your custom design. Garage, office, bedroom. California Closets will give you a space that's fresh, styled, and expertly organized. To get started, visit one of our 3 conveniently located showrooms or visit CaliforniaClosetsTampaBay.com to book your free design consultation today.